Good morning. I'm Attorney General Eric Schneiderman, and I'm joined here today by the U.S. Department of Labor's Wage and Hour Division Administrator, Dr. David Weil, a U.S. DOL Senior Attorneys Daniel Hennefeld and Elena Goldstein, by U.S. DOL Regional Solicitor Jeffrey Rogoff, and by the Regional Administrator of the Wage and Hour Division, Mark Watson. Also with me is my Labor Bureau Chief, Terry Gerstein, and Rich Berletta, the Chief of Criminal Prosecution in our Labor Bureau. We're here to announce a major victory in our fight to combat wage theft in the fast food industry, a victory that we achieved through partnership between my office and Dr. Weil's team at the U.S. Department of Labor. Both the DOL and my office are guided by the principle that no one who puts in a hard day's work should be cheated out of a fair day's pay. Sadly, our office has uncovered case after case in the fast food industry of bosses flouting the law and cheating workers out of their wages, sometimes developing elaborate schemes to avoid paying the legally required minimum wage or overtime. I'm proud to say that this office is helping these workers fight back, and I'm proud that we found a terrific partner in the U.S. Department of Labor in these efforts. Today, we are taking our enforcement activities to a new level. We're here to announce the first criminal case by a state attorney general in the country against a fast food franchisee for cheating his workers. This morning, Abdul Khokhar, the owner of 9 Papa John's restaurants, which are shown here throughout the Bronx, was arrested. We've charged Mr. Khokhar with failure to pay wages, a crime that carries a sentence of up to 1 year in jail. He and his company have also been charged with 1 count of falsifying business records in an attempt to disguise the wage and hour violations that were uncovered by our office and the Department of Labor. Mr. Khokhar and his company have also been charged with offering a false instrument for filing, which is a felony. Today's charges virtually guarantee that Mr. Khokhar will spend time in jail. He has been charged with requiring some employees to use fictitious names in order to avoid paying them overtime. And we've learned that the defendant began this practice after he was first inspected by the U.S. Department of Labor in 2013 and developed this scheme of concealment and deception in response to the Department of Labor's inspection, calling his attention to the fact that he wasn't obeying the law. So regardless of how many hours his employees worked, Khokhar would pay them a flat wage, violating our laws on overtime. He would pay them by check for the first 40 hours in a week under their real name, and then pay cash under a different fake name for hours over 40. His failure to pay minimum wage to some workers and legally required overtime to other workers cost more than 300 workers approximately $230,000 in lost wages. And Mr. Khokhar's effort to hide his crimes may have been crude, but his lies and deception were devastating to the hard-working New Yorkers that depended on his restaurants for a paycheck. As I've made clear, my office has zero tolerance for wage theft. When you take money out of the pockets of hard-working New Yorkers, you're taking food off the tables of their families. Today's announcement sends a loud and clear message to every fast food franchise. If you steal wages, you will be held accountable and you can go to jail. Mr. Khokhar will also pay full restitution of $230,000 to the worker he cheated. If he fails to make restitution payments, we will seek the maximum penalty of 1 year behind bars. His company will also file amended tax returns and pay any taxes owed or face additional penalties. As Dr. Weil will discuss, Mr. Khokhar will also be paying damages and penalties on top of the restitution we're getting for his workers, paying a total of $510,000. With today's arrest, we're once again showing that we are committed to standing up for all New York workers. I called on the governor some months ago to appoint a wage board, which is the first step in a process to raise the minimum wage administratively, since the state legislature has refused to act. And I'm pleased that the governor did appoint a wage board for the fast food industry, and we hope that the fast food workers will see a substantial raise very soon as a result. But the fight to raise wages doesn't mean anything if there are employers who refuse to comply with the laws on minimum wage and overtime. Refusal to pay minimum wage or overtime to the workers who are operating really on the edge, as it is despicable, it's unlawful, and we're not going to put up with it. Since I first took office, we have recovered more than $20 million in restitution for over 17,000 New York workers who were cheated out of their wages. And we will continue to bring both civil and criminal cases together with our federal partners until we end the epidemic of wage theft in New York State. And now I'm going to say a few words en español. Todo el mundo merece un pago digno por su trabajo. Estamos buscando una condena penal de este empleador por engañar a los trabajadores. Si los jefes engañan a trabajadores con sus horas extra o con el salario mínimo, pueden ir a la cárcel. And I want to thank our colleagues in the Department of Labor for what has been an excellent relationship on this and other matters. And I'm very pleased now to introduce Dr. David Weil, who is the administrator of the U.S. Department of Labor's Wage and Hour Division. David.
Thank you, Attorney General Schneiderman. And we are very excited to announce this joint victory with the Attorney General. The Department of Labor stands with the Attorney General in fighting wage violations in the fast food industry and other low-wage industries where minimum wage and overtime violations are all too common in New York and across the country. Through cases such as this one, we want to create ripple effects in these industries to change the mindset of employers so that they understand it doesn't pay to exploit their workers, and to create a level playing field for the many employers who comply with the law. The Department of Labor's Wage and Hour Division, with the assistance of the Solicitor's Office, have investigated Mr. Khokhar's Papa John's pizza franchises, and we found extensive minimum wage and overtime violations, as is common in restaurant industries, including fast food establishments. But the employer, as the Attorney General said, didn't stop there. After DOL came in and explained the violations to the employer, rather than coming into compliance as most employers do, this employer kept shorting his workers on overtime pay, and he started to try to cover it up with a fraudulent scheme. Employees were told to clock in under a fake name for their overtime hours. It sends a strong message to other employers in New York that the Attorney General prosecuted this company and its owner criminally for their conduct. The Department of Labor is working with federal, state, and local partners to pursue enforcement actions against employers anywhere, like this employer, who are repeat offenders and who repeatedly evade compliance. When employers unlawfully interfere with the Department of Labor in its investigations, such as by making employees cook the books, or by threatening employees in order to silence them, we will take prompt action in response. Whether we partner with criminal prosecutors or we seek a temporary restraining order, as we did recently in the Baby Vision case in Poughkeepsie, New York, such obstruction will not stand. The settlement in this case has both criminal and civil components. In addition to the criminal pleas described by Attorney General Schneiderman, Mr. Khokhar and his companies have executed a consent judgment with the Department of Labor to resolve Wage and Hour Division's parallel civil investigation of these Papa John's franchises. The consent judgment has been filed in federal district court. Under the consent judgment, the defendants are required to pay the $230,000 in unpaid minimum wage and overtime back wages that is also required as criminal restitution for approximately 300 current employees and former employees. In addition, the defendants must pay $230,000 in liquidated damages that will also be distributed to those employees to make them whole. And the defendants will also pay $50,000 in civil monetary penalties for a total payment of over $500,000. The consent judgment also requires the defendants to implement enhanced compliance measures, including improvements to their wage and hour recording system, designating an internal wage and hour compliance officer to review and certify records and respond to any employee complaints that might arise, and appointing an independent monitor to audit and ensure compliance. Requiring this kind of enhanced compliance settlements is an important part of the Department of Labor's enforcement strategy to not only gain immediate compliance, but to gain systemic improvements in workplaces where there have been pervasive violations. This case is also another reminder of the prevalence of wage violations in fissured workplaces such as franchises. Corporate franchises are justifiably invested in their brands and should care about wage violations occurring among their franchisees. The strong criminal and civil result in this case is an example of the impact of the Department of Labor partnering with state agencies like the Attorney General. The Department of Labor has a memorandum of understanding with the Attorney General that has allowed us to undertake this joint activity, as we do with 20 states around the country. We are working with the Attorney General on other investigations, and we look forward to more joint victories like this one on behalf of workers to make sure that working people receive a fair day's pay for a fair day's work.
Thank you very much. I have to say this has been a great partnership. Since we launched our campaign against wage theft, we have received a lot of tips. We've received assistance from other organizations, legitimate businesses who are, as Dr. Weil noted, at a competitive disadvantage because they do pay wages the proper way, from unions and others. We look forward to collaborating with all of our colleagues in government, and we continue to encourage the public. If you see someone stealing wages, you see someone failing to pay overtime, please get in touch with us. We will pursue these cases. We will pursue them civilly, and as demonstrated today, if we can, we will pursue them criminally. And with that, Matt, we'll take some questions.
Starting with today's arrest.
Did the tips come from the employees themselves, and what, if anything, can you tell us about Mr. Khokhar? Is he an immigrant himself? How long has he been operating this franchise?
Well, I don't know how long he's been operating the franchises. We did receive information from, among other sources, from workers that enabled us to bring the case. But it's also an unusual case in that the Department of Labor was in there and inspected, and in response to the inspection, he came up with this devious, if crude, scheme to try and pay them through fake names.
Mr. Weil mentioned the fact that there should be responsibility toward the main companies, that not BMY Foods, but Papa John's in this case, franchise owners. And is there a possibility that the responsibilities in this case and in other cases can get there, and have you had contact with them? I don't know if you can comment on the relationship between the main officers.
Well, that's a very important question. It is, we believe that the parent companies should take responsibility and should be concerned about these violations. It has been difficult for prosecutors to establish legal liability for the franchisor in this area, but it's something that we are looking hard at, and there is a higher and higher level of sophisticated interaction and control by the franchisors through the computer systems that they require the franchises to operate. So this is something that we take very seriously, and we're looking at hard. But they should take an interest in this for no other reason than the fact that they should care about their brand, and they should care about the idea that people do not like it when you're stealing wages from low-wage workers who are living, as I said, on the edge to begin with. It's really despicable to try and beat them out of even the paltry minimum wage we provide for.
Where are you from? You can identify where you're from.
Capital here. Just kind of, what are your thoughts on the mayor and the city council? What are your thoughts on the mayor and the city council's efforts?
With any more on this?
More
It is now.
on topic?
Start.
Tell us about his legal status right now, Mr. Khokhar.
Well, he's been arrested. He's turned himself in, and the case is being processed in the Bronx court as we speak.
This topic?
On topic.
Well, I'm Garnam from El Diario. I wanted to know also if you know anything about the future of this particular company, and of course the job positions that are involved in this situation.
Well, we haven't shut down any of the restaurants. The jobs are still there. The company just has to pay fines, and he is facing some time in jail. But no, this is not something that's going to cost anyone their job.
Anything else?
I don't have any particular comment on that. I haven't looked at the legislation. And this is a complicated industry. In general, we have antitrust concerns when it comes to restrictions on competition, but I have not really immersed in this issue.
Okay, off topic also, I wanted to ask you if you could explain a little bit more about the letter that was sent to the district attorneys about the special prosecutor situation. What are they able to do? What are they not going to be able to do?
So we received an order that I had requested back in December, but that the governor finally executed last week, designated me as special prosecutor for all cases in which a civilian dies in an interaction with a police officer. The order requires the district attorney's offices and my office to sort out which cases go to which prosecutor and to make sure that we get everything right. So I met with the district attorneys, most of the district attorneys in the state, in fact, were their representatives last Friday, and we are now establishing protocols to ensure that we get this just right, that we don't open ourselves up to a charge that the wrong prosecutor handed a case. But we're going to be working together with local DAs and local police departments on these matters going forward. We're just setting up the protocols to ensure that everyone gets it just right and that there's complete clarity about what can be done when.
And in this letter, there were some do's and don'ts, right? That could you go briefly into that? What can?
Well, the letter speaks for itself. The intent is to provide clarity that those immediately on the scene should not hesitate to take basic steps to preserve evidence and do other basic investigative things pending the communication with our office. And Alvin Bragg, who has been designated as the special prosecutor by me, he's the head of our new Special Investigations and Prosecutions Unit, will, as a team, and we have a team based in our offices all around the state, but we want to ensure that everyone works together in these cases to ensure that critical evidence is preserved in the hours immediately after an incident occurs, and also that we have a way to work out with the district attorneys if it's their case or our case. There are some complicated scenarios that could arise. Someone could be wounded but not die for a few days, so we have to work with them on these matters.
Two more.
Telemundo, has your office received any complaints on any scams related to the Pope's visit, people selling tickets that are free or anything like that?
Well, yes, we put out the word on this, and unfortunately, when you have important events, popular events like the Pope's visit or an important sporting event, the Super Bowl, there are people who attempt to scam folks about tickets. Go to the AG website. You can see our tips on avoiding scams. It is very important to ensure that you are buying tickets or getting tickets from a legitimate source. Anyone who promises you some sort of secret side deal, attempts to get any information such as credit card information, you shouldn't go along with that. Anyone who asks for more information than they need just to convey a ticket, you really should hang up the phone. There are people on the internet and people proceeding by telephone to try and scam folks. New Yorkers, be alert. If anything sounds too good to be true, it's probably not true, and we don't want this important visit to be marred by scams. We've done a pretty good job in getting out the word to people in the past, and New Yorkers are pretty savvy about these things, but everyone should be really be extra attentive because there's a scarcity. Whenever there's a scarcity of tickets for an important event, there are folks who try and take advantage.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Okay.